I'm back again with another recent reads. I feel like that's all the videos I've been doing lately are recent reads, and the reason is because this month has just been crazy with sickness and moving and family stuff. So that's all I've had time for, is to kind of tell you about the books I've been reading instead of any kind of like variety of videos. Hopefully in the new year I can put in some different variety, but for now you get to hear about what I am reading and what I think of it. So in this video I have 3 books. One of them I didn't love as much, and then the other 2 I really liked. So I'll start with the one I didn't love completely. Sorry if you hear Eliza in the background. We are in a parking lot kind of waiting for my husband to finish unpacking our storage unit. So we're kind of just chilling out here in this parking lot. So the first book I want to talk about is I read it as an audiobook, so I don't have the physical, so I'll show you a picture, and it was Rebel Angels by Libba Bray, and it is the second book in the Gemma Doyle trilogy, which I read A Great and Terrible Beauty a few weeks ago, and I'd given it an average like 3-star rating. I didn't know if I was going to continue, but then I saw the second one as an audiobook from my library, and I thought, well, that's an easier way to get through it, because as we're doing like tasks and stuff, I can just like throw it on. I won't have to concentrate too much because I knew it was kind of a fluff read, and that's exactly what I ended up doing, just kind of using it as a background sound. And it was just like the first one, a 3-star read, pretty average. If you don't know what the series is about, it's about a girl named Gemma Doyle who, it's historical fiction, so it takes place in like the 1800s, and Gemma goes to this private academy and or finishing school for girls, and as she's there and like meeting other girls, she finds out she has some powers and some connection to like the supernatural world. And so we kind of learn about that world in the first one, and this is a continuation of what happens from the first book, so I don't want to give any specifics about this book. And like I said, it was just average. What I like about these books is that, you know, they're fun and entertaining, but they don't really go deep. So like, if you were looking for just some kind of fluff book, I would suggest them as that. They do have a little bit of like horror elements to them, but they're very light horror. It's like, I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to horror, so like it didn't even scare me at all really. So it's more like just kind of like a little heightened fun parts in the book, but they're not like strictly horror if you're somebody that doesn't like horror. And there's no like gore. And so like this one had a little bit of that to keep me going and entertained. And the other thing I liked about this book was that this one, the second one, went in a little more depth about the background of the girls. Like in the first one, they seem like there's like 4 girls that are in this group, and it seems like mostly they're just mean girls and caricatures of like teenagers. But in this one we get a lot more backstory about them and like why they are the way they are, why they interact the way they do. So I liked that about it. But still, it wasn't anything heightened. It didn't take it to a 4 or 5 stars for me. But it was a good enough 3-star that I will continue and read the last one, probably on audiobook. It's the kind of book that I don't think I would actually read it. Like, the second and third are so big that if I had gotten the physical copies, I might have DNF'd them. But because I could just listen to them, it was fine. Alright, and then the next 2 books I have are both 4.5-star books. They were so close to 5-star. I love them both. And also both of them were buddy reads with Murphy Napier. She's another booktuber, and she has a Patreon account where you can join her Patreon, and those are her buddy readers, and we get to vote for which books we want to read in a month. And she's also doing where she's picking more popular books so that we can kind of like comment about them with each other and kind of see if we fall into the hype or not. Well, it turns out I loved both of these books, and so I guess I fell into the hype for both of them. And the first one is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. And this has been going around a lot, like, because the second one just came out, so everybody's talking about it lately, and so many people love this book, and I did really love it. I gave it 4.5 stars, like I said. And it's one of those that's kind of hard to, like, talk about because she reveals so much along the way, so you don't want to give it away too much. But the basic plot is about a man named Laszlo Strange, and he is an orphan and grew up working in this library, and his whole life he had this connection or had this obsession with a city called Weep, which is really far away across this big desert. And it used to be that Weep would be interacting with, I don't remember what the city's called that he's from, but they would, you know, trade back and forth and stuff like that. But then about 200 years ago, all trade stopped. Nobody from Weep ever showed up again. So people started to forget about Weep, and Laszlo is like the only one that really like thinks about it and writes about it and talks about it. And one day, some people from Weep show up. And we go from there of like him getting to learn about the city that he has been fantasizing about his whole life. And a lot of stuff gets learned along the way. And the thing about this book that some people in my buddy group didn't like was that it is a very slow moving plot. So if you are a plot driven reader, you might not love it. I am usually a plot driven reader, but for some reason I really connected to the characters in this one, and so I was just engrossed in this world. And I think if I just had to sit down and read this book in like a few days, I might not have made it. But with this buddy read, we took almost like 3.5 weeks to read it. Like we read only 3 chapters at a time. And that was actually perfect because it was kind of so slow moving. I could just like engross myself into it for a short amount of time, put it away, read something a little more fast paced, and then come back to that world again. And it kind of felt like coming back home because she has such beautiful writing. It did take me a little bit to get used to the writing, but once I did, it really added to the atmosphere of the story. And I liked how that kind of made me feel like I was going back to this place by having this writing that was specific to it. So I liked it a lot. I felt a little weird about the ending, which is why I didn't give it a full 5 stars, but I'm going to buddy read the next one in December, so hopefully that will help, because since it's just a duology, I might get some conclusion on that ending and feel like, I think because it was duology, she left it a little more open-ended than I would normally like a story to be. So I had to turn on the car because it's snowing out and I was getting cold, so I didn't want Eliza to get really cold in the back. So you might hear some noise, and that's probably the engine. But here's the last book I want to talk about, and it's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And this is one of those that, like, it's confusing because in some countries the title is 7.5 Deaths, and in other countries it's 7 Deaths. So depending on where you're at, it might change what the title is. And this is a mystery with kind of a sci-fi twist to it. So I don't want to give a lot away since it is a mystery. So the basic thing is that it is about a man who wakes up and realizes he's in a body he isn't really familiar with. He doesn't know who he is. And we find out that he is going to keep reliving the same day over and over again until he solves a murder mystery. So that's the kind of fantastical or supernatural sci-fi element, is this whole like reliving the day, kind of this Groundhog Day thing, and then he's just solving a murder mystery. And I really love this. I loved how he was able to weave together all these different characters, because there's a lot of characters in this book, because I can't even tell you how many, probably 20 at least characters in this book. And we don't hear from the perspective of all those characters, but we hear their names and like what they're doing throughout the day and like how they have a connection to this murder and the family. So that's a lot of characters to keep track of. And he does this expert way of going back and forth in time, back and forth in perspectives, but yet weaving it all in seamlessly, which I thought was amazing. And I personally did not get confused. There is like a part at the beginning that has like the guest list. Like it says, it's like one of those things that says all the people. So I would just like refer back to that when I got like confused and be like, who is this person? I would look back on that guest list to remind myself. So I think I would have had a hard time if I was listening to the audiobook, because I wouldn't have had that. And there's also like a map in here of kind of like the grounds. You can kind of use that to help you stay focused. But if you're somebody that can't read books that have a lot of perspectives, like you get lost, this is probably not the book for you, because it does move around a lot. You do get all those like ways that it overlaps with each other. You see the different people at different times and what they're doing throughout the day. So there is a lot of back and forth like that. So just keep that in mind if you're somebody that doesn't like that. But I thought he did excellent. He must have had like this whole spreadsheet and like one of those like things with the strings going from person to person, because it is amazing how he has linked all these things together. So I thought this was a really clever book. It was also a little different than normal mystery because of the sci-fi elements that added a little bit of uniqueness, made it more fun. But I do think that I didn't love, by the time I got to the end, I didn't love the sci-fi part, but I still loved the mystery. So that's why I still gave it 4.5 stars, but I wasn't quite to the 5 because I didn't feel like the sci-fi part wrapped up to my satisfaction. But a lot of people just think this is excellent, so it might just be me. And the other thing that bugged me is that, and trigger warning, there is some fat shaming in this book. So there is a plus size character, and I know it's like you're not supposed to lump in the character with the author, but there is so much fat shaming that I'm like, how is that not part of the author's problem? Because it is like detailed. I don't know, it was making me uncomfortable of how much we were like shaming this person. And so I felt like Stuart went a little too far on that, like a little too far, Mr. Author. Like, so that is another reason why I didn't give it 5 stars. Like, that section made me really uncomfortable, and I really wanted to get out of that person's head so I didn't have to like hear that anymore. So if that's something that would bother you, trigger warning for that. And yeah, so that, I would recommend this if you're somebody that likes mysteries but wants something a little unique. Like, I did not at all guess the ending of either the mystery or the sci-fi part. Did not guess at all. It totally came on as a surprise to me, which I often will guess things, so that is great. That's why I give it a higher stars too, because I often do not get surprised. And for a book to surprise me and keep me intrigued the entire time, that's amazing. So those are the 3 books I've read recently. I'm going to go pick up my husband, and hopefully our storage unit is all packed up, and Eliza makes it through the day. So hope you guys are having a great day. Bye.